Good morning.
Good morning, Jenny White.
Good morning, Michael Grande.
No political bear mask, no dancing politics at the farm, or
Well, not today. And that doesn't mean there won't be, or I won't do that again. I mean, but what do you think about the new title slide?
Yeah, I like it.
And see, if I do this, it actually is animated now. And did you get that? See, here's the homeschooling threat. The government is getting bigger and bigger over the heads of homeschoolers.
That's about right. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, I'm laughing, but I can see Jana down in the waiting room and she's not laughing. She didn't think that was very funny. Because it's not funny. I mean, it's just simply not funny. We've got to do something different than what we're doing. And what we're doing right now isn't different enough to help. So I'm hoping we have a really nice audience on here today, because I think, and we've said this before, and I'll say it again, and I'll probably say it again like 60 million times, but just because Trump got elected doesn't fix I know that on the podium, every time he talked, he said Trump will fix it. Trump can't fix everything.
No, and I hope people don't just stand down and quit asking questions and look the other direction just because they think all these things are going to happen. We still have to take the action. We're still responsible, not anyone else, as we've always said.
Well, and I guess my question to people, because we got our email stats back, the newsletter stats back this morning, and I was like, what happened to the readership this week? And I mean, I guess there's a lot going on, but I do hope it's not that whew syndrome, right?
Yeah, and it could be.
Syndrome.
Well, we know Big Brother knows best, Jenny, and they can make really good decisions for us.
Because for those of us who are political animals, our guy lost the pro tem in the Senate position yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the scuttlebutt, it was it was very narrow, like a vote. So I think we have a problem, and we have a problem. I called my representative, who is John George, because I wanted him to vote for, not Kyle Hilbert, but I'm having a senior moment. Oops, got to get that. Who are we voting for?
Bullard?
No, in the House.
Oh,
Tom Gann, because we wanted him to vote for Tom Gann. And basically, he gave me every reason why he wasn't going to vote for Gann, and he was going to give Hilbert, quote unquote, a chance. And I said, isn't that funny? Because I kind of thought maybe you worked for me. And see, the word representative means something acting on my behalf, right? Isn't that representative, right? Representative government, the people we put in there acting on our behalf, being representatives for us. I think a lot of people are missing that. I think that a lot of representatives are missing that.
That just sounds like that's just too old of a concept. I mean, we're in the new times. I mean, what is a woman? I mean, you can't even say what's a representative if you can't even define what a woman is.
That's super interesting that you say that. I mean, I guess I never even had thought about that. And I'm not super.
You're talking about ideas from, 200 years ago having representation.
Silly me. What am I thinking, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're having, again, issues with Rumble. And so I'm going to bring on our friends, and then we're going to get them going so I can figure out what in the world is going on with our Rumble stream. It says live, and yet it's not. It actually says live, and yet we're not getting anywhere on our live stream. It's not actually moving. There we go. Okay. I guess it is working now.
Delayed.
So it's like super delayed. How bizarre. Because you can hear it playing in the background. All right. So hopefully now. Oh, yes. Now, hello, everybody on Rumble. Sorry, I don't know what was going on there. All right. So I'm going to bring in Jana and Robert, and let's meet them this morning. So Jana Belcher, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
It's fine. You're out and about today.
Yes, I am. I'm at Gracemont, Oklahoma.
Graceland?
Gracemont, Oklahoma.
Gracemont.
It's out by Anadarko and Minco. And I have a presentation to go do in a meeting here in a little while. I may have to bug out a little bit toward the end.
Would you please tell people what you were doing there so that they will know?
So today I am working with high school students and recruiting them to a private Christian university. So I'm just sharing with them about what our university at Randall University does and how we we have a Christian atmosphere, Christian worldview, and we're a very small family-friendly campus. So that's what I'll be doing today.
Good. I just want people to know that it's not like, you're not just coming at this from, you're literally involved in the education community in Oklahoma.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Public, private, and of course, the home education.
Right. All right. Well, I'm going to bring in Robert. So, Robert, you actually look like you're sitting in a classroom today.
Well, close. An office, not a classroom.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
The world is my classroom. as you can see.
My classroom. So Robert, I know you and your wife, and you're both have children that you homeschool.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm a father of 5. Their ages are, I got twin boys that are 3 and all the way up to 14. And we have
your hands full.
Yeah, mostly my wife, Andrea. But we've been homeschooling them since the first one. And I'm not as in I have a good portion of the task of homeschooling, and so I help out Andrea where I can, and a father's role in molding their child to be a responsible, successful adult. So that's what we've been doing for 14 years since our oldest was born. And that was kind of an interesting experience, because going into homeschooling, because it's this whole world where you step out of the norm, and you get to when you step out of the norm, you get to experience just how thin veiled our freedoms really are, because you start seeing the constant takeover from the government, or attempts or the interest from the government to get into the homeschooling world, which is pretty free in Oklahoma. So,
well, I've told this story a couple of times, but I'll just tell it again briefly. So when my husband and we both moved out of Oklahoma City, interior Oklahoma City, and moved out to this farm about 12 years ago. And so our kids were in elementary school when we moved out, but they had been going through public school at the time. And I remember thinking to myself, once we got out here, then we also started doing a lot of other things, eating cleaner. I mean, we were not bad about it in the first place, but eating cleaner, watching, about medications and, all these different things. And I realized that we get on these treadmills, and I call them treadmills. So you get on this treadmill of, okay, well, I've got to go, and I'm going and I'm going to go to school. So I'm going to put the kids in public school, and that's what I'm going to do because all of my neighbors do it. And it it's like an indoctrination treadmill, where you're just doing it because other people have done it, not necessarily because you've really thought the whole thing out, right?
Yeah, I think our involvement just in homeschooling has encouraged other families to homeschool their children. Some of my coworkers and our friends, just seeing somebody else go their own with their child's education, gives them, a little bit of strength, or, stomach
Well, and
to take it on.
realizing they can do it, because that,
Yeah,
don't you find?
That's probably the number one concern that I
Yeah.
see with parents, that they don't think they can do it. And I was the same way, because Andrea was homeschooled, my wife, and through her high school years, she went up to the 8th grade, and then her parents homeschooled her from then on. But I was public schooled, so that was the conversation we had. We saw
You're unequally yoked.
That's right.
Not
Yeah,
anymore.
I didn't.
He
I was
converted.
very skeptical about homeschooling, that we could pull it off and have well-educated kids. But through the years, I learned very early on that the gateway to educating your children is teaching them to read. And
Yeah.
the earlier you teach them to read and enjoy reading, they'll have a lifetime of learning. And they learn from us. And if your parents, if we're excited in education, the children are excited as well. And so the parents, I think that's where the problem, the failings of the public school system, is that the parents wash their hands of educating their children. And if the children don't see their parents take an interest in their education, they won't either. And that's what I've learned from homeschooling.
Mhm.
And
Well, we've been taught that we aren't capable. We've been taught by
right,
both
absolutely.
in practice and in verbiage and philosophy that let the experts handle it. They have degrees. They were trained to do this. And yeah, when you're talking about a classroom of other people's children, a lot of us, I have a teaching degree, but I feel like that's all it really taught me was the legalities of how to maneuver through a system of, I have other people's children under my tutelage or authority. And when those authorities started getting taken away over 30 years ago, when I stopped teaching at public school, I was just like, I have no authority in the classroom, so the teachers, they do, but they don't, they have limited authority based on everything. But then the system is taking on the full responsibility of being a parent, which I know is kind of a segue, as Jenny likes to say, into the topic, because this interim study was called Wraparound Services for Education. And
well, let's talk about that, because I don't know that people kind of know where we're going. So there was an interim study done, and for those people who are listening who aren't really sure what an interim study is, in the interim between the two legislative years, right there, and it's usually in the fall, legislators come together and propose different questions that they kind of meet out in their committees over the fall time period. So one of them was Representative Swope, and she is a Democrat, and she is not a fan of homeschooling at all. And she did an interim study on, and say what it was again, Jana.
It was called Wraparound Services for at-home learning. So they're not just talking about academic services. They're talking about mental health, vaccination, children being able to have access to all the other social services that are handled through the school system.
Because unfortunately, there's a perception that
it's their job, or they own our kids.
Well, that's the ultimate one. Yes, you're absolutely 100% right. But I was actually not even going to go there, but that's for sure the overarching one.
Well, and this is like a stripped down version of last year's bill.
Yes.
That Swope brought in front of the legislature to not only, well, Andrew and I were interviewed on Channel 6 about the bill, and we hadn't seen the bill from last year. And Channel 6, what she had indicated to them was it's just a sign up, a small little, what's the problem of notifying the schools that you're going to homeschool your child? And then to which my comment was, liberty is lost in baby steps. However, ironically, when the bill came out, it was, no, it's not just a sign up. DHS is coming into your home every 6 months to check on you and run your household. So that was that was defeated last year. I don't even think it got out of committee, or I don't even think it's heard in committee. But then this year we come back with just an interim study on just a sign up, I believe is what they were looking at, just a notification. So here we are, let's get our foot in the door with just notifying the school that you're gonna homeschool your children.
Right. So, and they didn't even suggest notifying the school. They suggested notifying the Department of Health and Human Services, and that you would have basically a case, which is against the Fourth Amendment rights, like that's guilty without any being charged with anything. It's just overreach. But.
Right.
Well, there is this perception, and what I was going to say earlier was there's this perception that if children are homeschooled, they're in this little room and nobody knows where they are and nobody else knows what they're doing, and who knows what could be happening to these poor children locked in their own homes. It's the dumbest thing. And you're like, sincerely, yes, there is nobody who is not going to say there aren't abuses that happen in everything. It's just the way human beings are. But when you look at everything in total, there are way more sexual assaults against children, bullying episodes. I mean, you name it, it's happening in the public school. It's not happening in the homeschool. I mean, there's some stuff, but there's nothing like that. And I think most people don't understand that most homeschoolers, your kids actually go to a co-op, or they're with other homeschoolers. They're not at home. If you're a good homeschooler, they're not just at home, going, "Hey mom, good to see you." Then
the focus, Jenny, is academics, where that's the last thing. Like what Robert said, it's the most important thing is getting those kids to read like as soon as possible and loving it and learning it, where we know even the best schools, even the absolute best schools in Oklahoma, what are they? Maybe 50% in academics and proficiency in reading and math. Where you take your homeschooler, they're going to just blow that out of the water. And I think that's where people get so off, is it's really, because I have some homeschoolers. I have kids in public school, private school, homeschool, but it's all about academics, and just the social development side, I think, is also missed too. Because my son that is homeschool, he's the most social of all my kids.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
But that's twofold. I think one is that's the allure, and that's why so many families are recognizing that this is the freedom we have in Oklahoma. People are moving here in droves, and a lot of them say it's because they wanted to find the most free state, and it included the education, home education. They certainly didn't move here because the public schools were doing well, because we know that our ranking there is low. But
low bottom, you mean?
Bottom, yeah. But one of the biggest problems with that is it also makes those powers that be, that are money hungry and greedy and control hungry, see this as a challenge, because we are the most free state. And one of the organizations that was asked to speak at the interim study was I call them the disgruntled adult homeschoolers. I just kind of pegged that because I never can remember the name of their
OICA, Oklahoma Institute for Child Advocacy.
Well, that's a different one. That's the Oklahoma agency. I'm speaking about the
Oklahoma
Summer
Coalition
Fields with the Coalition for Responsible Home Education. I had to look at the paper. And, their goal is to make sure there is some kind of overreach in policy in every state. Yeah. And of course, Oklahoma has none, and they pointed that out quite frequently in their presentation. And so we're a target, which we have been for over 30 years. Our organization and individuals within our organization have been fighting all different kinds of this type of attack. But I think that the spotlight is way more on it now currently, for several reasons. One is that the blurring of the lines with charter schools that are some done at home or some done, meeting with the teacher once a week and called homeschooling, even though they're under the authority of the public school system, has blurred the lines. And so that's made it a lot more spotlight put on the freedom, because we've had to formally come out and define the difference between those programs and constitutional home education in Oklahoma. And, that's what my organization, Constitutional Home Educators Alliance, does. And that's why we named ourselves that.
Well, but let's again say this, because so in the Constitution basically mandates that a child be educated, and they say either in the public school or by other means is what it said. So it's not specifically labeled homeschooling, but if you're not using public school, then you're either private schooling or you're homeschooling. So that that statement, just the fact that there's nothing pinned down that says anything specific about that, is really what makes Oklahoma the freest state around. It's enshrined in the Constitution.
Right. And other states have freedoms that appear to be the same, but fundamentally and principally they're not, because we're the only state that has that originally in the Constitution. No. And the statement actually says that a public school will be provided for, they're compelled to attend public school, private school, other school, unless other means of education are being provided. Yeah. So that allows for technically 4 lanes. The other school, I'm not exactly sure, but I think it has been interpreted that they were referring to these modification programs like a magnet school or the charter school or something like that. So the definition of those is whose authority and who's financing. So if you look back at the time of this framing of this language, the typical meaning that was used for the word means referred to method and or authority and finances. So we know that over time, language, changes a little bit. Different people groups define words differently. So we have to go back to that and look at that. Home education, as we see it constitutionally, constitutional home education is privately funded, parent-led, parent-funded, so parent instituted. It's the parent's full responsibility. And just like our Constitution of America says that God gave us those rights, the government didn't give them to us. And so that's a fundamental principle that we always focus on, is that God gave you these children. God gave you the right and the responsibility to raise them according to the nurture and admiration of your convictions, which we believe are from the Lord. Even non-believers constitutionally still have that basic right, because it was written into, our Constitution, that we recognize that liberty. So that's the fundamental principle that we fight against, because nobody else, no matter how many degrees they have, no matter how much research or pedagogies they have under their name, it doesn't give them the right to come in and tell a family who has not broken any laws or done anything civil or criminal what to do with their children. Yeah.
The irony of that group that you were talking about, the Coalition for Responsible Home Education, is that, and you call them the disgruntled home educated, which is
terrible.
And it's ironic because they talk about how bad their homeschooling experience is, yet they're very successful adults, and they're assimilated in society. I don't know if assimilated is the right word, but they're well spoken, they're organized. I don't understand what more they wanted from their life.
Right. And they did say that they were founded by talking to each other through social media and things like that. And they discovered that they themselves had a great educational upbringing in their homeschool, but they have met other people that are likely a little more on the fringe of home education that had different experiences. And so they feel like it's their job to try to protect all future homeschoolers, all current homeschoolers, because they have met people over time that have either fallen through the cracks or had negative experiences. And my reaction to that is, do something. As believers, we are supposed to do something to help our fellow citizens, but that doesn't mean you go around and try to make legislation for all the people who are doing it right.
Right.
You could help individual situations without that.
And let's talk about that then. So we had this bill last year, Representative Swope, who basically wants all, homeschools to be government run, which I don't know how they become, they're not homeschools then, but essentially she wants, all of the parents to have to sign in and, all these things that nobody moved here to Oklahoma to do, because people just wanted to be left alone. But then there's another problem that we've had for several years, and that is this tax credit that homeschoolers are being given now by the state for homeschooling. So what about that?
Take it, right, Jenny? That's only if they take it.
Correct. Yes.
And that's blurring the lines between within the Constitution, the publicly educated, the government provided education, and then those educated by other means. Now that you have the government wanting to provide funds to homeschoolers, or now I think they're being lumped into that government provided education. And to the point about I hear that a lot, because when we a couple of years ago, when we talked to the legislators about this bill, and well, first it was presented to us that it would never pass, and then it did pass, and then after it passed, they said, "Don't worry about it, you don't have to take it." And my comment has always been that it doesn't take but one or two to abuse this system to reflect all of us. And I've heard estimates of 5% to 10% of Oklahoma children are homeschooled, and 700,000 children are enrolled in public education. So we could have 35 to 70,000 children educated at home. And if one of them goes and buys a 65-inch screen TV and says that's an educated purpose, now you know, and it is in the bill. The state statute talks about you know, the $1,000 per child is allowed, and then that's paragraph C2 of the state statute, and then paragraph I2 is where the Oklahoma Tax Commission has authority to audit those families based on the receipts they turn in. So you can imagine if somebody's abusing that money, that's going to be the data that we're all represented against. That's going to be the data the government needs to come in and say all these homeschoolers are, you know, out of control buying, you know, guns and and
Right.
TVs
And one of the goals of maybe not individual people, but obviously systems and programs, is to capture data for all kids. And so I think Oklahoma's a target because right now they technically don't know for sure which ones are constitutionally home educating. So I've never enrolled my kids anywhere that is, you know, a public school. So the ones who have removed themselves from a public school, they notify the school, I'm removing my child, and that's legally all they're supposed to have to do. But over time, we've noticed a lot of schools say you also have to sign our exit form that releases us liability of truancy. And one of the speakers spoke specifically about truancy at this interim study, and they focused on that the most. They focused on the fact that there are students who are being truant and then they're pulling their children out saying they're homeschooling when they're not. And obviously that's a completely separate situation. First of all,
Okay,
they're already in the system and DHS already has a case with them, or whoever, the Department of Education school already has a case with them for being truant. So they shouldn't make a blanket law that's going to affect all of us who are doing it right. And even one of the speakers mentioned that 99% of all homeschoolers are doing it under great intentions, but it's this 1% that we don't even know about. We don't know where they are. We don't know who they are that we're trying to, you know, free up. And I'm thinking, but the ones you have in your care already need the attention. The ones that we do already know about are slipping through the cracks. As a former public school teacher, I can't tell you how many students that we knew had active cases with the DHS, had active problems, both educationally, abuse, mental, all kinds of stuff, that were still in the home, still, you know, not being properly handled. Those cases were not being properly handled. And so we can't overtax the system because that would way overtax the public. So, you know, if you think, oh my goodness.
Here she is.
Am I still there? So if you, if all of a sudden all of the constitutionally home educated students were having to sign in at their local public school or the Department of Human Services, that would obviously expand government. It would obviously expand these programs to include all these families that they currently aren't responsible for.
Well, in the
so
Oklahoma
it's
Tax
multi-tiered
Commission,
in the sense that they shouldn't be responsible for us because we're not choosing to be a part of that system, and they should not force us to be a part of that system.
Yeah. So what were you saying, Robert?
Oh, and you've seen the Jana shared the Oklahoma Tax Commission had already started hiring school choice representatives over the summer. So growing the government.
Well, and I think there's a point I want to make here in a very big way, and it's one of those ones that I get slapped on all the time, and I really don't care. I'm becoming immune. We say there's a slippery slope, camel's nose under the tent. Once you start doing this, then it's just easier to continue to do it. And as soon as you say slippery slope, as soon as you say something like that, there's running around and screaming and hair pulling and hair on fire. Oh, well, that's just, that's illogical. It's not illogical because government never shrinks. Government only grows. I still have yet when people say, well, that's just illogical, I'm like, okay, if it's illogical, can you please give me one example where government has shrunk? Just one is good. And I can never get that out of them because nobody ever has one of those. But the point of the matter is that there's somehow that we still have this idea in our head that government is here to help us. Government is going to save us. Government is somehow benevolent. And it's going to somehow, so how could we rage against that and say, no, 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 we don't want your help? People simply don't understand it. And then they'll use this one. Well, it's my money. I just want to get it back. Well, it's my money. Okay, so here's my question for you. And let's all answer this together. What about if you don't take it from me in the first place?
Right.
Right.
See, we
And
never
That's
get
what
to
the
that.
attempt.
Never
That's
get
what
to
the
that
attempt
one.
to call it a tax credit. That's the attempt to call it a tax credit because tax credits used to be relatively safe, but this particular one in Oklahoma is also a voucher. They took the exact same language from the previous year that was on the tail end. We've collected your money. Now we're going to redisperse it and give you a rebate, basically a voucher. They knew that Republicans agreed with us on that. They didn't like it. And so then, and I am a Republican, by the way, but they then they take the same language and put it into a tax credit because in the past we had talked about tax credits being more safe. But the problem with this one, especially with the private school being tagged with it, so it had the private school students get up to $7,500, but that check goes to the school with the parent signing it. So it's really not the parents, it's the parents, if they have a contract with a school that they can forward the voucher to, then they get the tax credit. So I think what you're talking about would be more like something we had proposed, which would have been a across the board educational parental education expense credit, which would go to all families if they had a child school age. Didn't matter where they schooled, how they schooled, as long as they had a child that age group. And that way it wouldn't have singled out homeschoolers get this, private schoolers get this, public schoolers are already covered. One of the problems with that was the EPIC charter schools and K-12 and different charter schools have a model that looks similar to homeschooling, but they are being on a voucher. They are on a voucher on public authority and public control and public fund. And would they, where would they classify when it came to the IRS?
Well,
the more you blend
point
these groups together, the more they have to be shaken back out. So you blend everybody together and call them all the same thing, but legally and technically at the IRS, we're not. So then somebody has to shake the marbles back out, and separate them back out as to who they really are. And that's the part that we have the most concern about. So, because we don't have to sign in anywhere. What we do is up to us, between us,
Well, and here's the other thing that we've heard, and all of us have heard this over and over and over again. Well, what are you so worried about? I mean, what is this? What is such a problem about that? The government giving, because we've got all this stuff now about how we're going to give government money to religious schools, and we're going to have a religious school come in and be a public school. And we're mix mashing all of this stuff. And people don't seem to understand that what the government funds, the government will control. Maybe we should all say that as a mantra. What the government funds, the government will control.
And it's welfare, and welfare has always been used historically to control the people. Everything, your FAFSA, your first time home buyer, your NRCS, pond you had built, everything the government gives you is a means to control you.
Exactly. Get solar and we'll give you a rebate. Get buy a new air conditioner that has this new modification that's,
but it won't last very
certified.
long. It won't last as long as
You're not supposed to tell that, Robert.
Insurance is another example. Insurance. Yes. I tried to find a daycare for my oldest daughter back when I was teaching, And every single daycare, they had these protocols they had to follow, even though it was against my personal preference. They had to offer milk so many times. They had to change their diaper every so many hours, whether it was soiled or not. And I said, I don't want you to treat my child like that. I just want you to love on her. And if she needs one of these things, you give them to her. You don't.
Yeah.
And they were like, we're sorry. That's how we have to operate, because we had to get certified. We had to get inspected. We had to get government money for some of these children that are in the home. And so even mine, who wasn't funded that way, it really just squeezes out the privately funded person from having any kind of freedoms and authority in their own situation.
That's exactly
Medical
correct.
insurance.
And the way that we know that about homeschooling here in Oklahoma is all we have to do is look at Arizona. Because I mean, how many times have we have a little group of homeschooling, people that we have in a group, and how many times have we shared articles about the homeschoolers in Arizona and saying, now what are we going to do? Now we have to provide this, and now we never had to provide that before. Why are we having to provide this now? Why is I like stuff. Confusion is key to keeping the sheeple in the pen. Keep them from finding the gate. That's the goal. Good work. I love that one.
Well, and along those lines, we talked about people from other states moving here for the freedom, but don't get fooled, because on all of our social media, Facebook and Instagram groups that support constitutional homeschooling, they get so bent out of shape if we say we do not want to talk about funding here. State funding. This is not what this group does. We support constitutional homeschooling. And they get so upset. And then our constitutional homeschoolers will defend them and say, they just want what we have. And I said, then they need to sacrifice like we have. If you want what we have in order to keep it, we have to maintain the difference. If you start blending it all together, then we don't have what we have anymore. And people always tell me, if you don't like the school, they can just pull them out and homeschool them. And I said, not if the homeschool turns into the same, the same regulation and, telling me what I have to teach and all of those things. So
and it's it is welfare,
freedom and responsibility. Yeah.
Everybody, everybody pays into that system, back to, the tax credits, is that whether you have children or not in the education system, you pay for that education system. I've heard something like 50% of the budget of the
That's
budget
more.
is.
I've heard 53, I think.
Okay.
Don't forget we had, and because our legislature loves to use this term, we had an historic budget last year. Historic.
But
it was the biggest one ever.
Of wealth, so they're
most
taking everybody's money.
Education plan ever. Yeah, most comprehensive education plan ever in the state of Oklahoma. And of course it was, because they finally found a way to include all 4 sources. Although constitutionally, we still have the ability to, like you mentioned before, that we don't have to take it. So that is the only ticket out, but that won't stay very long if we don't do something about it. Well,
I wanted to point out to what Alexis Brown says here. In Tennessee, I'm concerned that the government will use the accrediting agencies to rally participation of private and homeschools. And I'm sorry, Alexis, we're going to have the same problem here. So Tennessee, Oklahoma, it's pretty much all the same. And as a matter of fact, when you go and you look at the tax credit bill, and you look at the bill for funding private schools with our tax dollars, it basically actually says if that school isn't accredited, then they're not going to give you that money. So you either have to go to an accredited school to get this government funding, or you don't do that. And so what Alexis is saying is absolutely legit, 100% legit.
Right. In fact, when we were fighting against that, the bill actually said accredited through one of the agencies that's listed with the Department of Education. So it goes back up to the Department of Ed, the state of Oklahoma. And they then it also said, or a school that is in the process of becoming accredited. And
Yeah.
at the very first run of this legislation, they had some language in there that the agency didn't exist. And I went to Senator Treat's office and I said, this is the agency that you have listed in the legislation, and it doesn't exist unless you can tell me where to find the information. And they either did the acronym wrong, or they were planning to start a new accrediting agency and they put that language in there. And I don't know which is true because they didn't ever call me back. The language did get changed
They
after
didn't.
that. No, but the language did get changed after that. So there's a couple of accrediting agencies for private schools. And by the way, their lobbyists are at the Capitol every day. Every single time I've been there, I've seen them there. So, and
Well,
also the Catholic
because
schools
there's money
have a
involved in
lobby.
accreditation.
Right. And the Catholic schools have a lobbyist that's there regularly.
Oh, yeah. I think he lives there.
lobbying,
Doesn't
so-
he have like a room there or something? Little Brett.
Probably.
Yeah, I think he does have like a room
So
there.
I talked a lot because I have to jet. But you
No.
guys enjoy the rest of your conversation, and I'll look forward to watching the end of it here.
Well, thank you,
and
Jana, and thank you so much for being, out there and working as hard as you do, and especially last year for sure. So, thank you for that.
I just wanted to put a plug in for Constitutional Home Educators Alliance.org. We do have a blog about Amanda Swope's legislation that she put out last year. If you want to read through that, I did bring a printed copy. Looks like January 21st is when we shared that last year. And then also we have a Facebook page with the same name. And then also Linda Murphy has done a post that explains this entire interim study. And then I know Robert will talk to you more about the petition that they have been working on, and what his organization is coalitioning with ours and others to do. So just some resources that we can follow up with after.
And I got to meet Jana last year. I got to meet you last year at the homeschool day that you guys have, and then I've also run into you at the interim study. So Jana works very hard.
Yes, she does, Mr. Man. Yes.
Thank you. Our legislative impact day is going to be February 10th, which is a Monday. That's the day that we will try to have as many families there as possible to actually go meet legislators and hand out our packet. If any new legislation comes through, we'll definitely go see the people who are in the committees and leadership positions. Yeah. But we also like to welcome all homeschool. We like to welcome all of the new legislators that got sworn in this year. Yeah. So there's quite a few of them. And my senator, Kendall Sacchieri, got elected. So we're excited to have a new senator that we helped campaign with. And so that's exciting. But I will let you guys finish up. And
Kendall is one smart cookie.
Oh, thank you. We do give cookies too and pies sometimes at the Capitol.
True.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Jana. We really appreciate you, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks. Y'all have fun.
All right. All right. Bye-bye.
See if I can carry the rest of this. Oh,
you can do it. Okay, but let's talk about the before we get too far down the road. Let's talk about the petition that you have, because I think that's important.
So, because of the school choice bill that was passed, and the reason what was confusing is that Andrew and I we felt kind of alone, because when we were up there at the Capitol, they were telling us, well, this was last year before school choice was passed. They said, oh, all the homeschooling organizations want this. And that goes to what Jana was talking about the tax credit versus the voucher. And it was just deception on the homeschooling groups, because, the word voucher had become such a curse word that they changed it to tax credit. And the truth is that it was a refundable tax credit versus a non-refundable, which means a refundable tax credit means you get more back on your taxes. So if you pay $5,000 to the state government in income, and then plus sales tax and all that. I know there's more taxes that we
Oh,
pay.
yeah.
You know, you
Oh,
could get
yeah.
$1,000 per child for homeschoolers and $7,500 unlimited. There was no cap. Well, there was cap on the total amount they could pay, but that was a misunderstanding by a lot of the homeschool organizations. They thought, oh, a tax credit, as in like Jana explained, every child gets a tax credit, you know, for being a child to educate. You know, that was a very generic kind of like, which I, you know, it's silly. We shouldn't have tax credits. We shouldn't be taxed. I mean, everybody, we should, you know, simple tax, but whatever. Everybody gets the federal, if you have a social security number for your child, you know, welfare control, if you,
Mm-hmm.
you get some money back for having a child on your federal income
Yes.
tax every year. And so we were being told this at the Capitol, Andrea and I, that, you know, big homeschooling organizations approve of this, and the truth is that Andrea went out and just started grabbing as much people as she could into an organization to say, hey, this is not, you know, what we need for Oklahoma. This is letting the government into homeschooling, and that became this coalition of you know, constitutional homeschooling, you know, coalition to protect constitutional homeschooling.
Right.
And the goal of that group has kind of, well, it's like a loose coalition, right? Because we've got CHIA, you know, Homeschool Oklahoma, and then you've got the band of co-ops, the
Yeah.
independent homeschoolers that aren't necessarily part of an organization on their own, and we draw them into this coalition against school choice money. And so our goal is, at a minimum, to remove homeschoolers from school choice. And so we've been working this year to create legislation to you know, draft a bill. We have a bill drafted to remove homeschoolers from the state statute, which basically deletes paragraph C2 and I2 from the state statute. And if you want to find out how free you are, go look at the state statutes, because there's probably about I couldn't even tell you, endless amounts of pages. Yeah, the federal government, I heard, was like 100,000, 8.5 by 11. The state's probably like, you know, 10,000 pages. I couldn't tell you exactly, but you know, we need a bill to delete the state statute, or to you know, remove
Right.
legislation. And so that's
Right.
what we're working on this year. And then we've started collecting signatures at various groups to try to encourage legislators to take on this bill and show them that there is a sizable amount of constituents that are concerned about blurring the lines between a public education and a homeschooled education. So that's what we've been tackling here recently within the last few months.
Well, where can somebody go to find that?
The petition, yeah, I guess if we have a Facebook page, and it's the you know, Oklahoma Coalition to Protect Constitutional Homeschooling, and that would be a great place to join and reach out to Andrea, myself, you know, or Jana, and others, to see if we could if you're interested, you know, it's a physical signature, so we'll
Yes,
have
you
to
have
meet
to
with you.
actually meet them someplace and get it.
And we're, you know, we're looking for we have a few people, you know, getting signatures from within their co-ops and groups. So if anybody wants to take on you know, a few sheets of paper, what we do is we have a copy of the bill that we've drafted for you to review. And then, you know, we have a petition that goes along with that bill that says, you know, we, the undersigned, you know, are concerned and want homeschoolers removed from the school choice state statute. So I think that would be the best way, to reach out to probably that Facebook page, to find one of us that can get you the petition to sign.
Okay.
So
So has it been a frustration for you? Because I know it has been for me when you you talk. For some people, this is about money, and I understand that not everybody has the financial wherewithal to be able to just drop everything and bring their kids home and do. I mean, we all understand this, and it totally get that. But for so many people, they could be doing this on their own, but it ends up being, well, but that's my money. It goes back to but that's my money and I'm doing this and I just want to get it back. What is the
Well,
argument that you can get? I mean, we talked a little bit about it earlier, but what is the argument that you can give these people that's going to make some effect on those people that see this as a really more of a monetary issue?
well, from a homeschooling standpoint, we're only talking about $1,000. So I don't know that that's actually life-changing money in the world of educating your child. And a lot of these people that are educating their child at home, I mean, most of the mothers maybe have a stay-at-home job, or they don't work. That is their job, a home educator, house, housewife or something to that effect. So I mean, actually, we've met mothers, single mothers, and actually home educate. I'm not sure how they pull that off, but I guess they have home jobs. There are a lot of jobs that are at home, like medical transcriptionist or something like that. Uh, but anyway, we, uh, if you're talking about I don't see how $1,000 a year is going to move the needle for your child's education. We don't really spend a whole lot of money to educate our child, and a lot of that, reading, and I would not say that Andrew and I spend a large amount of money, in just spending time sitting down with your child, teaching them to read, or every opportunity around you in life is an opportunity to teach your child, whether you're making pancakes in the morning and using a measuring cup. And he's like, hey, do you remember how we talked about how many cups are in a gallon, or how many teaspoons are in a cup? And then you can play it out in real life, and you're teaching them math. So um I guess I have a hard time understanding how, I guess from the $7,500, uh I uh, I could talk to that. I mean, that seems like a large amount of money, but I'm really just focused on homeschoolers, removing them and that $1,000 credit. I mean, I just don't see how that's almost just like a tease just to get you into the system,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I
and that
mean,
was kind of my thought too. I could not really figure this out. Alexis is asking how homeschool is identified, and we talked about it just briefly a minute ago, but it's basically it in the state constitution. It says that public education will be provided as a means of education, but then it basically it says by other means of education.
right.
If you don't want
It's
to use a
in
public school, you get
our
to use other means of uh,
article, yeah, Article 13, Section
thank you.
4 of the Oklahoma Constitution talks about, because I mean, I could read it word for word: compulsory attendance at some public or other school unless other means of education are provided of all children in the state who are sound in mind and body between the ages of 8 and 16 for at least 3 months of the year. That is the actual Constitution, which actually differs, interestingly enough, from the truancy law state statute, which expands that from not 8 to 16, but I want to say
8 to
maybe
18.
8 to 18, and
Yes.
6 months out of the year.
Yes.
So
And it's ridiculous because we're not even following the Constitution in the first place. Because legitimately, once you reach 16, you should not have your education paid
right,
for by the state. And I don't know how it is that that's never gone to the Supreme Court, that
I guess
somebody hasn't fought that.
nobody's made an issue of it, I would assume, and because you have the Amish community, and they don't educate to 18. I think after the 8th grade, they generally go to work on the farm.
Yeah.
And so all it would take is for somebody, these law, well, like the legislature creates a law, and then it's up to somebody to challenge it through the judicial branch. And it's probably nobody's ever been fined or something to that effect for violating that state statute. But I will say, as far as truancy laws go, talking about pulling your kids out of school, or not having them attend school. I mean, I read a news article not too long ago where there was 2,300 families in Oklahoma that were called to court because of their kids were not attending school. Not being in attendance, 100% or whatever the attendance policy was. And, I just find that incredibly amazing that we would spend state resources, making sure, putting parents in jail or fining them money to make sure that their kids are, in school. There's got to be a better way than that, in my opinion.
But that goes all the way back to, and we got a number of comments that I want to get in here because I think they're really good. But that goes back to the whole idea of forcing kids to be educated anyway, and that in and of itself is authoritarian. And I've had this discussion with legislators over the years, and they're so authoritarian. They don't understand that they're authoritarian. And
Right.
you can say, look, it's not your business if my kid isn't educated or runs around, barefoot in the street until they're 20. I mean, how is it? Well, and then they'll do this. Well, but if they end up in the system or, they're running around and they're causing problems, I'm like, okay, that's an entirely different issue.
Yeah, and we have laws against that, but I will say, if you look at the literacy rates from 100 years ago, before compulsory education was a thing, there's numbers out there that would claim 80% of the population was literate. I mean, how did we make it for hundreds of years? Well,
honestly, because
without compulsory education,
because people would sit down and read the Bible, and the problem is with the internet right now, if we did that, we would have the biggest, because we already have the biggest dumb population of children out there, nationwide as a rule, because they sit with their, doing this all day with their phones, or they're at school on some kind of a computer or whatever. We've taken out band, we've taken out music, we've taken out art, we've taken out drama, we've taken out all of these things that help these, that classically educate children, and we've taken them out of schools and then made them sit there at a desk or at a computer.
Right.
We're not even educating children properly in a public school, and it shows that in society.
And it's been actually the problem has existed since the 80s. The government has been trying to fix education since the 80s, since the federal government released The Nation at Risk during Reagan's administration. And there was a finding that, education, scores were falling since the 60s up into the 80s. And so the government has attempted to, fix education. And in my opinion, it's removing the parent from the role of education. You can't expect one teacher in a classroom of 30 or 40 who may or may not be invested in educating these children to, encourage these children to learn when their parents don't even care if they learn.
So let's examine that. So is the idea then to educate children, or is it to create workers for jobs?
Well, and you get paid. The schools get paid based on attendance, and so the truancy laws are there so that they make sure that the kids go to school so they can get their dollar for that day that the kid's there. And if the kid, that's why they take attendance every day, is to make sure all the kids are there, because that's their paycheck. And so, are we teaching kids or are we making money? I'm not, you tell me.
Well, I don't think we have to tell it. All you have to do is look at the scores.
Right.
Just look at the scores. There is this test that goes around that was Kansas, like a little red Kansas schoolhouse test or something from like 1889. And it was for 8th grade. And it floats around every once in a while on the internet. And people are like, that's not a real test. That's not real. That's not it. Absolutely, it's real. You're just embarrassed because public schooling is a failure at educating children. And the longer we go at this, the dumber they get because you're doing such a crappy job because it's about money and it's about power. It's not about educating children. So Becky said, and I think we need to jump off on this. So Dr. Pelham said, well, a second ago, Lisa said, we lived in the San Francisco Bay Area and homeschool kids and kids do that. So it's, and like Lisa says, you'll do what you want.
Well, yeah, and
You'll do what
Andrea
you
and
want.
Andrea and I made that decision, you know, with our firstborn. You know, it was like, okay, because she was going to college and she didn't really like what, you know, and she was homeschooled and she went to college, no problem. With, you know, she just got to the point where it was like, I don't want to do this. You know, I don't want it. 2 years of college, and so we made a decision. We made that, you know, financial adjustment years ago. So it's you know, I can't be one to sit there and talk to somebody today who's got 2 working parents, but I do see it a lot. I see a lot of professional women that come to work, and after 4 or 5 years they have their first kid and they're like, hey, I want to stay at home and, you know, raise my child. And it happens a lot. But
Yes, it does.
and you make that adjustment. So
Because
I know it can be
I
done.
see on the other side though, and I'm always a defender of parents, but and Jenny and I have talked about this multiple times, but I literally have very, very good friends that, you know, they can't wait to literally get their babies into Head Start or, you know,
Right.
whatever, some
Yeah,
type of deal. So
absolutely.
that they don't have to deal with it. They can just go to work. And I mean, ultimately
Sure.
that's the problem here. And
But we're not trying to make a one size fits all like the government is. We're trying to say, government, stay out of homeschoolers. Let us live our lives. We're not the one size fit all package. If people want to put their, you know, go to work, and mom and dad go to work and put their kid in public education, it's there for them. So I'm not, you
but
know,
ultimately, I think what it comes down to, and we've talked about this a lot, literally, the more educated you are, you're a threat to the government, especially if you're homeschooled. I mean, you're competition to them. They want total control. And if you're a free
homeschoolers.
thinker, independent person, you're literally competition to the
That is,
government.
yeah, absolutely. That is one thing I've learned with being in the homeschooling community. It is amazing how entrepreneurship is
Yep.
such a huge driver within this within this you know,
Yeah.
group of individuals, and that was not something that I received in public school. I went to public school to go to college and become a wage slave for a
Yeah.
corporation.
Well, yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, and Jenny, I think you're studying this right now, but we're basically that Prussian education system model where you just basically create obedient workers, you know, skilled just enough to pull the levers and do the job and do the labor that needs to be done in
The
one way or
bell
another.
goes off and you move. The bell goes off and you
Yeah,
do this.
exactly.
Yeah, it's just bad. I mean, and nobody sees through it because we're so indoctrinated to do it. So let's go back and hit Dr. Pelham's question. Are you anticipating the conversations coming from the new administration, their discussions on the $10,000 tax credit for homeschooling? You know, here's the thing.
Is that from the federal level?
Yes.
That can't be the state.
No. That's the federal level. And you know, if they were to take the earned income tax credit away, you know, I think, and then substitute this or do, you know, but then here's my bottom line with tax credits. Don't tax us for that then.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Don't steal it from me. Julia made a comment that I loved back here. Hold on, I'm going to find it because I want to put it up because it was so funny. It's another one of those Julia comments that she makes. Amazing that people still think that the thief who takes their money by force will take care of them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's true. You steal my money and you steal it. I mean, there's no way I don't give it to you willingly. If I don't give it to you, you come take my house or you put me in jail. So it's thievery. So if you come steal it from me and then I have to beg you to get it back, but then when I beg you to get it back, there's strings. We have to fill out this thing. You have to fill out this thing and you have to make sure your income isn't over this and all of this, you know, garbage that the IRS puts on it. If you really want to do something, President Trump, How about you just don't tax me on that?
And he had talked to, I was interested, it was interesting to me. He had talked about, how the government used to be run on tariffs and not like the income tax. I'm
Yeah,
not for
but
sure how
it's
true that is.
true.
Yeah. I'm not for sure like where that falls into history and when those changes were made, to be
Well,
honest with you.
Jefferson talked about that because I remember Jefferson or was it Adams? Adams was the not Secretary of State, but when he was like 16 years old, he was the ambassador to France.
Oh, Junior John Adams, John
Yes.
Quincy Adams, or
Yes.
no, or yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think there was something about that, and he was talking about that. And I don't remember, but yes, I mean, this is obviously, hundreds of years ago, but the point of the matter is that it could still work. We just do this, you know, like Whitney Mullica says, and I wonder if she's watching this morning. She says this all the time. Government is a jobs program.
Yeah.
Government's a jobs program. It's not here for us. It's to employ people. So
Well,
here's
it's like I
another
told
one.
you,
So
Jamie, I mean,
Becky, we're gonna have to really watch that because if you take it, they will come. I mean, that's just the way it works. So you're right. We're gonna have to watch that. And then I thought this was funny. That $1,000 for homeschoolers is the rotisserie chicken of Costco. It's
Right.
a loss leader.
I see, it, it's only, I guess your budgeting and your income is really, what you make of it. I know, plenty of families that are making it, are thriving on a shoestring budget, I guess you call, and homeschooling their children. It's not, you don't buy a brand new car every 5 years and whatever. That's not really,
And
but
who wants them now anyway? They're all electronically spying on you. I don't want a new car. You can keep your new cars.
well,
I
and when
want to
they
go back
break
to
down,
1950. I'll just
yeah,
drive an Edsel.
when they break down, they cost a lot of money to
Yes, they
troubleshoot
do,
and
but the
find the
Edsel
problem.
doesn't. I mean, my kid could work on it in the front yard. My kid who was homeschooled, who taught himself how to work on his own car on
Right.
YouTube videos.
Yep.
So here's another one. Alexis says our Tennessee Constitution states that Tennessee government is responsible to provide free public education. The state DOE has created interesting. See, this is why we shouldn't have a state DOE. And I love this one from Julia. My husband would throw his pocket change on the table and say, if you can count it, you can keep it.
Yeah.
It's great. I will speak personally to anyone who believes they cannot homeschool because they need 2 salaries. Contact me. So that's Lisa O'Brien. Absolutely look her up on Facebook. Be my Facebook friend. You'll find Lisa O'Brien. But that is kind of another thing that I wanted to say. We homeschooled a friend's child with our kids because she was a single mother and had to work. I mean, it's not as though if you really, and again, I'll say this one more time. If you want to do something, you will make it happen.
Right. Absolutely. Right.
You'll do it. So, when I hear people complain, I'm like, well, I guess the thing is, how bad do you want it? Because it sounds to me like maybe really not bad enough to make that happen. Listen, I'm everybody's mama. Well, Robert, we're coming down on 113. So why don't you tell me, what do you think? What can we do? We need to sign this.
Well, I think I think the best thing for homeschoolers is to protect, our, freedom, and that is, removing any government involvement, from homeschooling, and don't take the money, because then you're kind of run into that trap where you might think you need it. But you just can't have government money, free of regulation, influence, or oversight. And so, we can't keep handing our, our responsibilities over to the government. So, yeah, I sign the petitions, look over our bill, and and hopefully we can get more people help us. We're talking to legislators, and the more people we have talking to their legislator, because it can't just be a handful of people. It really needs, the homeschool days that Jana has with Chia and Homeschool Oklahoma are instrumental in you don't go there and you don't go there and pound your fist on the table. We just have to advise our legislators of our opinion and pray for the best end result. But get involved for sure.
Well, and I think because Michael and I started out like that, just because Trump is president, we can't just go night. I mean, we have so many authoritarians in government, and this pro tem election the other day didn't help us.
Right.
That didn't help us. And we still have a bunch of people who are just fine telling us what to do instead of the other way around.
Well,
so
I forgot to mention the Tim Tebow bill.
Oh yeah,
and
you
the,
do.
and that
I
interim.
forgot about that.
That was the other interim study, because that one, the first interim study was SWOPE. That's out there. I mean, that's going to be a tough one to get passed, because a lot of the legislators are supportive of homeschoolers. But then when you have a conservative legislator come in with a conservative idea for homeschoolers, it's another avenue to come into our group and regulate us. So I'm actually more concerned about the Tim Tebow, which is basically legislation that would allow homeschoolers to be involved in the public school sports, which is what Tim Tebow participated in Florida. And what people don't understand, or may not understand, is that Florida has a lot stricter homeschooling rules, and if I recall correctly, Tim Tebow was involved in more of a oversawn education to be part of that public system. Now, the irony of that Tim Tebow interim study that was held is that the main speaker was pushing for his son to help the public school by being in the public school sports. He had his son actually got a scholar without public school involvement. His homeschool son went on to get a college ride, or get a college scholarship. Based on his athletic performance within just being homeschooled, because there are organizations within Oklahoma that provide sports opportunities for homeschoolers. We had our son in NOAA in the Tulsa area. We have the Northeast Oklahoma homeschooler sports. It's called the NOAA Jags. And then you can also, if you're not inside the city, people band together and start their own, sports groups. So I know, like, the SWOPE's interim study is really bad, but what concerns me more are these other, these potential, conservative interim studies that present a window for the government to put their foot in the door.
Yeah.
So I wanted to mention that. I completely slipped my mind. But that's why I'm saying it's important to talk to your legislator, to be involved, and that's all I really can think of.
Well, and I think, people, and here is your wife actually. Private message me to sign this homeschool petition, along with seeing the drafted legislation it supports to remove homeschoolers from the tax credit program. So if you look up Andrea Scott on Facebook, again, you can probably find her by going to my page. If that's where navigate there, and you can find Andrea there. Definitely reach out to her, and she can give you some help and tell you where you can go to sign this petition. But we really do need to keep that in the public eye, and we've got to educate those around us. Those of you who are on this morning who are homeschoolers, we're educators. I mean, that's what we are. And we have to remember that sometimes we're not just educating our own children. We're having to educate the people around us, the parents around us, about what's going on, because there aren't a lot of people that are as really goobery into Oklahoma politics as the Scotts and the Belchers and, us, and me and Michael. I mean, there aren't that many people. So you really have to be very good about educating your fellow homeschoolers, going to co-op and saying, y'all, I need you to sign this, hey, this is what's going on. That's what I used to do when my kids were in co-op. Everybody would see me coming and go, what is it now? So what do you need now? So yeah. And Becky says, are there links and actions we can follow to make sure the proposal from the nosy Democrat lady keeps pushing is stopped? I can't remember her name. Swope.
Swope, yeah, Amanda Swope.
Amanda Swope is her name. Trying to force homeschoolers under the purview of the Department of Health and Human Services is very concerning. And I would hope, considering the fact that we just had JJ Humphrey on here, didn't we, Michael, on Friday, and talking about all the abuses in the DHS system that they can't get even an investigation to find, right? So DHS can't even do its job. It shouldn't be touching the rest of us. So let's make sure that we're messaging that. Okay. All right. When DHS can do its job, well, we're not going to talk about it because we don't want to have involvement in.
DHS will never be able to do their job. No government organization that grows out of control will ever be able
Well, I kind of even argue that no government job will be able to do it, period, because they automatically grow out of control.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Alexis says, I encourage homeschool cover schools to educate their members. That's true. Yeah. The new homeschool families' reasons to homeschool are very different than years ago. And Alexis is so right about that.
And Andrew and I, we volunteered to go around and speak at groups and have a discussion. We've done that a couple of times. So if any, we've done it. So we're there. And there's nothing special about us. We're just two parents that are speaking with legislators and have a concern. We're no different than anybody else on the other end of this screen.
Well, and I would encourage you a little bit more. I mean, you're highly educated and very motivated, and so many parents don't know how to be motivated and aren't even interested in being motivated. So you are an exception, but that doesn't mean that people can't be you if they want to.
Yeah, speech is powerful. That's why they always want to mute it, because when you start talking, you feel alone, and then you start talking, and then people agree with you. That can be very dangerous to those in power. And all you need is somebody to agree with you, and you feel more comfortable speaking. So,
yep. And there are a bunch of you out there. So thank you so much for joining us today. So appreciate you and Jana, and we'll keep. I mean, don't worry, because I'm and like Alexis says, you are your best advocate.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. And that's 100%. We need to say that over and over again. You are your best advocate. So thank you again, Mr. Scott. We so appreciate you being on, and we will keep in touch, because there's no way we're not going to continue to follow this and do whatever we can to make this stop. So we'll keep up.
All right. Take care.
All right. Take care. You as well. Bye-bye. Well, Michael, that was another great podcast, and I have to apologize to the few people who are watching us on Rumble today, because Rumble did what they did before. And I'm just going to tell you this. I mean, I get that everybody's all up on Rumble, but Rumble is not run well. I don't know what their problem is, but they're not run well. And I spent all day on Sunday setting up all of these live streams that we were going to have. And somehow they managed to mash them all together, even though I double checked them 3 times. So we literally had 3 streams running this morning, Michael, which is why you could
Well,
never figure out where you were, because they ran 3 streams together, and now I've had to shut them down, and I'll have to go back and redo them. So those of you who are watching because it's covering up sexual misconduct in public schools with Visit, that will be tomorrow. So I'll have to go back in and change all of that and re-edit it so we can make that work. So I'm so sorry for the confusion, but I'm pretty sure that's not me. So before we get off of here today, did you want to talk about a letter that the superintendent has sent?
Oh, yeah. Let me see.
I've got it up here if you want to look at it.
The religious liberty and patriotism letter.
Oh, no, I wasn't even going to
put up whatever letter. I have the most recent one.
Yeah, I don't think this even is the most recent one, but I think it's definitely up there. So let's share that and just at least see what it says. Is it that one or is it this one? You had this one. Oh, that's the religious liberty and patriotism. Yeah. Okay, so I don't have the other one.
Okay,
so this one is, I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger, maybe so that you can see it, maybe, possibly. Is it getting there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so this is...
I didn't see that one there on the 11th.
Superintendent Walters forms Trump Education Advisory Committee. So he's going to form an advisory committee. Future of Oklahoma's public education is bright with President Donald Trump involved. The committee is charged with oversight of policy changes, timely execution of reforms. The goals are to set clear priorities in alignment with President Trump's education policies. Okay, so, and here's the one that, they actually linked it. So this was the one that came the other day. So this is what these block grants, moving to block grants and getting rid of the Federal Department of Education, championing parents' rights, ending social indoctrination in classrooms, protecting patriotism in curriculum, stopping illegal immigration's impact on schools, blocking foreign influence on our schools. All right, so I just have a question, and y'all can throw your tomatoes in the comments if you like. I'm a big girl and I can take it. But I just have a question. So where is educating children on the list?
I don't know, but everything else really sounded good, Jenny. It really sounds good.
But I'm serious. I mean,
how about like raising proficiencies to 90%?
Wait, was that on there?
I didn't see it.
Wait, I don't see that. Yeah. How about developing curriculum that is not run by the Federal Department of Education I'm getting more and more aggravated with our state superintendent. I'm glad he likes Trump. I voted for Trump. I'm hoping he's going to be, better than he was even the first time around. I'm a Trump supporter, but you can get so far up the behind of President Trump that we've lost. You can't even see out, as to what's actually happening in Oklahoma education. And just me personally, I'm not going to involve you, Michael. I'm just going to say this for me. I'm right now asking our superintendent of public instruction to supervise public instruction. And let's worry about the whole Trump thing. Let's worry about that later. And let's kind of worry about the fact that we have kids that literally aren't reading in Oklahoma, and we're 49. And I still can't figure out. I have asked numerous people, and I will ask you guys. And again, you please feel free to help me with tomatoes. I have yet to ask this question of a Ryan Walters supporter. Name one thing that he's done to improve educational outcomes in Oklahoma. And if you're going to tell me it's stopping the woke stuff, I'm going to put the big buzzer on you. I'm going to do the big buzzer. No. Do we need to get that out? Well, sure. Absolutely we do. But what should be the number one concern? That or getting kids to read?
Yeah. Well,
That or
and that
getting
would,
kids to do math?
yeah, and you know how fast it would turn the numbers. I mean, we go from like 47, 48, 49, whatever. I mean, we're at the literal bottom. I mean, you could get into like the 20s, you know, the 20th best in a short amount of time if you actually just really emphasize academics, reading and math, you know, as that's it. This is where we're going. We're going to raise our proficiencies. We're not going to have any of these schools in the 10s and 20% proficient. We're going to have the minimum, you know, the minimum we're going to accept in this state is like 85 or 90%. And that, and even in today's time, I mean, give me a break. If you can't have 90% of your kids just proficient in that, and we already know that bar's been dropped as it is. The proficiency bar has been dropped. So if you can't even get 90% of those kids to even that bar, I mean, that's some serious, that's just a dereliction of duty, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty frustrated. So this needs to stop, and we need to pay attention to what's going on with kids and elevating their scores. Yeah. And it's like Dr. Pelham has said when we've had her on before, the culture in these schools, and V1SUT, Mary will tell you the same thing over and over again. The culture in these public schools is toxic.
Yeah.
And it starts with the superintendents, and it starts with the principals, and the principals who are putting up with this crap. They're allowing this crap. The superintendents who are getting elected by school boards that are just there to get elected, you know, superintendents elected. I mean, we talked to Dr. Pelham, who's from Texas, who said, you know, hey, we don't have this system in Texas. These people fight each other to make sure that they're doing a better job, you know, than the other school is. We don't have that here. There's no school that's trying to outdo any other school. And I mean, maybe in indoctrination, maybe in wokeness, but they're not trying to do that in terms of how they're educating a child. I mean, this is literally insane. So Alexis says, who gives the parents the right to choose the best education for their child? Many of these defy the basic principles on which we were founded. Then Lisa says, people are piling on to a broken mess. And that's true. They can't legislate more and more and expect a different outcome. They need to scale back. This isn't a difficult concept. I'm 100% in agreement, because if it were me that were sitting there, the first thing I would be doing is chop, 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 cutting, and making, we need to get some rules made, some actual legislation that says that nonprofit private organizations who come into private schools have to be vetted by some state committee. They can't just ad hoc be, you know, in some school board lets them in, because it's these private nonprofits. We had Gabe Woolley on before he became a state representative. We had Gabe Woolley on, and he talked about how he ran into that as a teacher, about these private organizations that come in and then just derail the curriculum and install all this goofy stuff. So they're doing goofy stuff instead of teaching kids. So I don't know, well, Michael, as a comparison, so frustrated.
Yeah. Well, as a comparison, how much infrastructure does it take to teach a kid to read? And when you think about it, how simple it is. When you take a homeschool family or a single homeschool parent and a single homeschool kid, how much infrastructure, money does it take to teach that kid to read at a high level? Not much. Not much. Yet, when it comes to the public's money on the other side, it takes billions of dollars to have a minute amount of results.
100%. 100%. It takes, I remember one time, this was before you joined us, and I think it was 2014 or 15. It was during one of the teacher walkouts. See, Lisa says I can do it for 10. During one of the teacher workouts, and I was like, if you're a really great teacher, I posted this on one of our things, and I said, if you're a really great teacher, then you can teach in a closet. You can teach a kid to read and do physics in a closet. You don't need to have all of this money. You would have thought I was the Antichrist. Hair on fire, people screaming, you hate teachers. Teachers can't do that kind of shit. How am I going to teach it? You know what? I taught science and barely had anything in my classroom, and I still managed to teach science. All of this is BS.
Yeah,
I'm not going to shut up, but teachers come at me. Bring it, bring it, bring it. I don't care. You're not going to get me. I'm telling you, I've been a teacher. I've been a public school teacher. I've been a homeschool teacher. Dr. Pelham's been a teacher. Lisa O'Brien has been a teacher. Robert just piled back in and said, all it takes is your time, not your dollars. Lisa said, I can do it for $10. And, Becky said, the only thing I can find, and I've looked hard, is providing an actual avenue for the work V1SUT has been doing, but he's killing any ounce of academic success in our state. And Alexis says the same things. No nonprofits. They do the very things that the legislature passes laws and says the government can't do. Yes, ma'am. So they use nonprofits to carry out ideologies that usurp. That's exactly correct. The goal is social justice, not to read. So if we really wanted to do anything, what we would do is we would create a law that says no nonprofits in any private school or any public school under any set of circumstances. They all have to be we vet textbooks that nobody ever uses, and the left uses that as a big thing, right? If we don't vet curriculum, if we don't vet these private organizations that are coming in, that's way worse than anything else. So quit climbing up the backside of President Trump and pay attention to where you are and help getting our kids back on track.
Well, think about this, Jenny. Just rewind the last couple of years. Have parents had more access even to the classrooms, to their kids at school? I mean, even something as simple as that. Have you seen that trend reverse? Absolutely not. Is the curriculum more transparent? You go ask a teacher about something in the curriculum, you're demonized. You're literally demonized. I mean, so all these little things, have any of those even, had any kind of a moniker in any way? I mean, it's just a question. It's just a question. I mean, there's so much politics and so much money in education, and that's where we are. It's most people, and I'm not speaking for everybody, obviously, but I'm just telling you from my experience when I ran for school board, when I talked to thousands of people with all my friends, all my brothers, their friend groups. I mean, literally, public education now is a glorified babysitter. That's what it is. I mean, times are tough. Both parents have to work. They don't have to. Like I think Lisa said, if you make some sacrifices, you can live on a single parent, and one parent can stay home, one parent can teach, do whatever. I mean, we've done that for a long time at my house. And, we did that on just a little, making a little bit of money for a long time. Yeah. But ultimately, if you take responsibility for yourself and your family, that's what it comes down to. Like I told you, I mean, I have a very, very, very close personal friend that they can't wait to get their baby in, Head Start or, whatever this little program is or that. They're just chomping at the bit to get them out of the house.
I can't. Then why have a child?
Well, I mean, it's hard, but yeah, we have to take responsibility. And it's if our kids can't read better than 50% proficient at a bar that's been lowered, then, shame on us as parents.
I'm not kidding when I say this, and everybody's going to laugh, and that's fine. I don't really care. I hate that song. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas because it has the one line in it I can't stand. And mom and dad can hardly wait for school to start again.
Yeah.
And that was written in 1954, that song.
Yeah.
So we've indoctrinated parents to just like Marx wanted, and Hitler wanted, for God's sakes. Hitler took over all of the schools and wanted the parents to raise these children to go into these, these schools so he could indoctrinate those kids. Parents literally have been indoctrinated to give up their babies to the state over and over and over again. And, but it's great. They can do sports there. Honestly, I've said this 100 times. People get on to me about this too. Again, I don't care. Sports. No, but if you can't get kids to pass, you shouldn't have sports at your school. How is it that we keep kids from playing sports if their grades are too low, but schools can have like a 15% rate of kids who are actually reading, and yet they get to have their Friday night lights and all of this other stuff? How's that happen? I think it's a pretty good question if you want to know the truth.
We have that, we've talked about it.
Alexis goes, ooh.
And I'm a big sports guy. I love sports. I played sports in college. I was on scholarship. All my kids play sports. But yes, there is a camaraderie to that. There are many life lessons. You learn to work in a team, in a group, or whatever your sport is. But ultimately, if you can't read, what's it matter? What's it matter? Look how many of these, even let's go to the highest level. Let's go to these professional guys, professional sports figures across the board in the United States that are broke because they can't even understand their own finances.
Well, and here's the other thing too. Here's the other thing about sports. My kids participated. My son went to band, homeschool band, played the clarinet for 3 years, all during middle school.
Yeah.
So there you go. One of the girls played soccer, and she did a soccer thing. Another one was they were managers for the homeschool football team, and they did that. So if you're going to tell me they're the only, Miss MJ says that was a great question. Thank you. If you're going to tell me that your kids can't get that camaraderie and whatever outside in private sports, that's such a lie.
Well,
I mean, they absolutely can. We don't need public schools to give our kids something to do. We need our public schools to teach our kids how to read and write. You can't even do that.
Yeah. But without, and Rachel think about
says, yay, homeschool band.
The free market would, if there's a need for private sports, the free market will figure out how to solve and deliver that need in one way or another. I mean, you see it in small towns where you have like a Kids Inc. type of organization. You pay $20 to, they teach your kid in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade how to play football, basketball, things like that. Though, because your kids aren't like in a small town, your kids aren't in, school sponsored sports like that. Yeah. So those things will come out of the necessity of people wanting to do it, and you can do it for a pretty cheap price. But at
Alexis
the same time,
says it best: keep the main thing the main thing.
Yeah, if you don't have these massive sports programs in these schools, then you don't need these massive bonds to build these massive facilities.
Look at what Julia said just as you said that.
Yeah.
I love that. Government's a very bad way to finance anything. There will always be waste because free money, and always be poor quality because they aren't responsible for the money that they bring in.
Yeah.
The proverbial someone else is responsible. Bad plan. Amen. Yeah. Julia. But yet we do this all the time. And then like last year, an historic education budget. And we're all supposed to go, really? And everybody does. There are 5 of us out here that we're all on here this morning that actually get that this is a big joke. I mean, my gosh, how many times I'm focusing on the 3 R's with my 5th grade daughter this year. Yep. How many times have you seen Ryan Walters in the national media and everybody's just lauding Ryan Walters? Yay, Ryan Walters. Yay, he's getting Bibles back in school. I'm like, if you can't read the Bible, what the heck difference does it matter? You can't even get him to read the Bible, and they couldn't read the King James Bible. How many people, maybe 2 kids in a class of 30 could actually navigate that the way we're teaching reading?
Yeah.
I mean, so this
Well-
is nonsense. It's all nonsense.
Yeah. Well, and like I tell my kids and most people all the time, this country was built without that education model the way that it is. Presidents were homeschooled. All these statesmen were homeschooled. Inventors, scientists, Alexander Graham Bell, the Wright brothers, you know, all these people, they were all literal homeschool people. We built this country without this. And I make the argument, we're at the pinnacle of technology.
Yeah.
You know, we're at the pinnacle of the amount of money spent on education. Are these things getting better? No, they're only getting worse. We can't even produce our own things. We have no entrepreneurship. We have no business. We have no finance skills. There's no business skills. I mean, it's just mind blowing that the social program that has come into everybody just wants their piece. You know, leave me alone. Give me what I deserve. You know, and that's it.
You know, I just thought of something, and I love what Lisa said. Parents are so indoctrinated, they believe schools know best. Yeah. They aren't questioning schools, but instead riding the wave of mediocrity and waiting for the experts to tell them what to do. I think that's phenomenal, because even parents are like, well, I don't know what to do. I can't do that. They've got an excuse for everything. You know, how can you empower parents who don't want to do it in the first place? You can't. They're not going to do it. But I just got to thinking about something. So when I was in middle school, I went to it was called Hoover Middle School, is where I went 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And it was in North Oklahoma City, around where we lived. And I had music and I had shop. We had shop. So I was in music all the years, and I was in drama all the years. I know, imagine that. And then I was in shop, and then I had, we had the regular classes. Well, I've told everybody that when I went to high school, I wasn't a good student at all. And I spent way more time doing stuff I shouldn't have than actually doing school. But my point of the matter is, I literally, we didn't even have ACT preps back then. I mean, maybe you did, but the rich people were getting them because it wasn't for us. I mean, they charge you, whatever. So just us, we were just going and getting the ACT, and you just go get it, pile into the gym on Saturday morning, be there, no calculator, right? And you just pile in and take it. When I took my ACT as a junior, I think I took it as a junior, may have been a senior. But anyway, the point of the matter was, I didn't have ACT prep. I wasn't even that great of a student, but I had a really well-rounded education. And my mom was a teacher, a public school teacher. I ended up getting like a 26, I think, on the ACT, just taking it. So how many kids have to actually go to ACT prep to get a 26?
Yeah, and that's the new one compared to the old one. The old one, I guarantee, is a lot tougher. Well, same thing. I mean, Jenny, when I grew up, we had hardly any money. I mean, heck, my dad only made like $18,000 a year.
Yeah, for sure.
We really grew up with nothing. Anything I wanted to have or do or buy or whatever, I had to figure it out. I had to do it. I had to either work a job or build it myself, figure out how to fix my car myself, or whatever it is. It's just mind blowing. Like even my own kids. I mean, I'll even pick on my own kids, because it's so ingrained in me just to do it myself all the time. I mean, I wind up doing too much for them rather than, teaching as much more than I should. But ultimately, when I took the ACT, that, like you said, there was no prep class, and and literally at that time when I was in school, I mean, I did just enough to make an A. That's it. That's how I was. I mean, I
wasn't even carrying an A.
Oh, yeah. I wanted A's. But I did just enough to just make an A. I never went like way over the top like our valedictorians and people did. But I went in, took the ACT. I think I took it twice. I think the first time I made a 25 or 26. Second time I made a 27, and that was it. And that was just, you're off, you're done. I mean, there was no prep, there was no nothing. It was just, and I went to school just enough to, get by with an A. But you can't do that. I mean, these kids just don't understand any of that in today's time.
And here's the thing. I think the average the last time I looked for Oklahoma was a 17 or an 18 on the ACT.
Yeah, probably.
So now granted, there are a lot of, students that kind of, can pull that down. But the point of the matter is, like you said, I got a 26, you got a 26 or whatever on it, just cold taking it because our education was so much better and it was a much harder ACT than it is today.
Yeah.
So you just look at that and I can show you how many times they've actually dropped the bar on the ACT since 1977. I have a graphic still somewhere on my computer where I actually found that they had done that, and they just keep dropping the bar on it and then saying, it's whatever, you get this grade. And I mean, we're so far off. And when we have the top teacher essentially in the state saying not prioritizing education, but prioritizing politics, prioritizing whatever. I mean, I don't know how we recover.
Well, in my opinion, it all comes down to that reading and writing and math.
Julian.
If you raise the proficiencies up, if that's your one goal, you just make a singular goal for the entire state and say, this is what we're going to do in this state. We're going to get every one of these schools to at least 85% proficient, if not more, and incentivize them to do it in one way or another. Spend the money correctly to incentivize that, and you just make that the priority. You'd have a massive turnaround in education in just a short amount of years in this state. I mean, short amount of years.
Absolutely. I mean, I met a guy one time. His name was Ken Hartzler. It's been years and years and years ago, at a convention, and he was a math professor, and he was hired by Oklahoma City to raise the math scores. And just by having kids take timed tests every morning and just doing that, repetitively on their basic skills, their times tables, multiplication, subtraction, addition, and just doing that every day, he got their scores up something like by 15 points just at the end of a year. I mean, it's not rocket science to do this. It's getting out all the crap and garbage, politics, psychology, emotional garbage. It's just getting all of that out and focusing on, here's what we're going to learn today. We're going to diagram a sentence. Here's what we're going to learn today. We're going to make sure we know all our math facts. That's all it is. But we can't even seem to get to that because everything has become this political fight, and our representatives, our Oklahoma legislature isn't helping that, because instead of fixing it, because the school choice movement says this, well, it doesn't matter, just move them out and we'll pay for that and we'll pay for this because this sucks. Okay, if this sucks, fix it. Quit giving them money if it sucks. But they don't ever do that. They go, well, we passed this an historic budget that gave the Oklahoma education. Come on. This is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. If you legislators out there aren't going to grow some kind of a backbone, aren't going to grow some kind of a spine, I think we ought to just dedicate ourselves to figuring out which ones need to get popped out. Anybody who votes for giving public education more money, because these educators are all woke and mean and they'll just bully you and beat you up if you don't do what they want. People, we voted Trump 66%. 66%. You shouldn't give a rat's rear end about people yelling wokeism. Stop it. You have a mandate. You just tell them, we're not funding you. You figure out how to teach kids and then we'll discuss it.
Yeah. You change the incentives. You change the monetary incentives to these schools. They'll switch around faster than their heads will spin around backwards, because they cannot do without that money. There's no possible way.
Lisa said, imagine where we will be when those who scored 27 are gone. Yep. And we're a society of people who got 17s. Yep. Well, this is by design. We're all being dumbed down so slowly that most even aren't aware it's true.
I'll tell you the one of the best memories I have is from my 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Hammond. She was the best teacher ever. I love Mrs. Hammond. But she used to have us, like when you were talking about, just reiterating the basics. And I didn't even understand at that time. It was just a game to us. But every single day, she used to have us come up to the front of the class. There'd be 2 of us. She'd pick 2 people. And for like 15 minutes, she would just give us some, what's 8 plus 7, whatever. And whoever wins, got to stay there. And then, so she made a little competition every day. She'd do, math or, multiplication or addition or whatever. But she was just automating that in our brain. It took just a short amount of time, but I love that so much. Everyone in my class loved it. I mean, we couldn't wait to get up there to, to go face each other to see who could solve the problems the fastest.
Wait, Michael, that didn't hurt somebody's feelings because they couldn't get it. I'm so sorry. That's so scary. I don't know. How could you do that to children?
Yeah, there was no hurt feelings. I mean, if you lost, you were just chomping at the bit to get back in there. That's how we were.
But that's exactly, I make fun of it because it's fun. It's fun to make fun of it because it's ridiculous. But that's exactly what they did. I mean, that's part of the reason why my mom retired when she did and why I got out of education and never went back, because we could see that whole, PC stuff coming down the pike with this. Oh, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. You get to have a little trophy. Here's your little trophy. Here's your little ribbon, and it was never about, it quit being about excellence and fighting to be the best one because it was going to hurt somebody's feelings if they weren't the best one. And those, and you're like, I see where this is going. It's going right down the toilet and I'm not going to be a part of it. So I quit. And guess what? I'm standing on the edge of the bowl looking down and going, yep, that's exactly what happened. It's not rocket science, people. It just takes people with a backbone. And if we don't have that backbone from getting 66% of and being the reddest state, even though Oklahoma County, let's not even talk about it, being the reddest state in the union doesn't give you a mandate to tell those bully, nasty public school people to go put a sock in it, you don't get any more. I don't know what does.
Think about
this. Then these people are useless down there then.
Think about this. You know how the government is always all about jobs, all about all this stuff, right? Okay. This is so simple. And I talked about this when I had a forum question when I was running for school board. If you had, so we're so proud to be the reddest state, that's all politics. It's 100%. What if you were hands down, you were the most literate state? You were the most educated, proficient state in the country. Do you know how many people would be moving to Oklahoma? You know how many jobs would be coming into Oklahoma from people just swarming here to get their kids in an education system that is the best, the most read, the best, the most proficient? I mean, that is how you solve all these issues.
But our governor doesn't want to do that. He wants to give tax incentives to companies that will come here that we will train their workers for them. That's what he wants.
Yeah.
That's why you see us just getting lower and lower.
Yeah.
Amber said, so true, Michael. I'm jealous. Okay, there she says, yes, you're right, Jenny. I was like, I'm so jealous, Amber.
Give Jenny her props.
Okay, well, we got to get off of here because it's 2 hours, and I'm sure everybody is like, okay, I'm so tired of listening to you guys yap now. And again, I'm so sorry, Miss MJ. You probably took you forever to figure out what in the world was going on Rumble today, and I apologize. I'll go all back through it here in a minute and see if I can't fix it. But I'm very frustrated with Rumble.
Well, it's still, the Rumble on my side still has about a 15-minute delay.
Yeah, it's not quite as bad on my side, but it's still delayed. Yeah, I've emailed them and they won't email me back. Yeah, I've emailed them 15 times. They won't email me back. Yeah. So there you go. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. And thanks for the great discussion. I mean, Alexis says, thanks, y'all. Our state is in round 2 this year. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're in round 54, so totally hear you. We've got so much work to do at that Capitol this year. And if you don't get out and tell your rep not to vote for Kyle Hilbert and to tell your rep to vote for Tom Gann, and I'm done with this. Well, ask them nicely. I'm not saying to be mean, but I'm just saying, hey, look, you're my representative. I need you to vote for Tom Gann. That's all you have to say. You know, just don't beg them to do something that they're up there to do and you put them up there to do. Okay, I'm sick of the begging. Don't need to do that. Be nice, but we're not begging anymore. And then also, you know, we still have one more vote for pro tem. We still have one more shot to get Bullard in there. And you guys are going to have to work on your senators and get this turned around, because this is just silly. And keep following, because we'll be doing much more on that as the weeks go by, because we've got to get this done before January. Thank you. We always love to have you, Julie, because you have such great comments. Reagan, we need to stop begging. Yes, ma'am. See, Reagan's with me. Reagan's with me. That doesn't mean be mean, but that means don't beg him to do their job. Hey, it's, you know, hey, I really need you to do this for me. Thank you so much, because since you're my representative. Okay. Closed mouths don't get fed. Speak up. Stand up. That's right. We can win this. We just need to do it. All right, everybody. You guys have a great day. Do not forget, we have a special tomorrow. And it was all my fault. I forgot to schedule. I forgot to schedule B1SUT this month. That was my fault. We were like, well, she's got some great information that's coming out about how everything's getting turned upright by the AG Drummond is getting involved in the school board, the state school board issues. And this is not good. Please tune in tomorrow at 9 a.m. So we're actually going to have podcasts today, tomorrow, and Friday, much to Michael's chagrin. He doesn't need to work for a living, right? So don't forget, we are going to have V1SUT on here tomorrow. And then on Friday, we'll have Julianne Romanello talking about carbon capture credits. And we really need to learn these, because I just got a phone call from our friend Sandra Treywick before I got on, and she's found more actual pipelines going in around the state. So we've got to pay attention to this. This isn't working out in our favor. So please stay tuned. We thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to share. And you've commented, so that's great. So like and send us around. So have a great day. Anything, Michael?
That's it. Take responsibility as always. Trump's not going to save all of us on every issue.
Yeah, we've got to fix ourselves here. So he can't do that. So anyway, have a great day. We will see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on both Rumble. I'll figure it out. And on all our other channels. We'll see you at 9. Thanks.